The Chicago White Sox had an off day on Thursday and will now start a 3-game series in Tampa. The Sox are 5 games under 500 and have 3 teams ahead of them in the AL Central standings. They desperately need to string some wins together, but the Tampa Bay Rays are just not the team to do it against, especially in their own ballpark. The Sox have been better on the road this season. So can our White Sox surprise the Rays?
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day, especially with the season that we are having as Sox fans. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong diehard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The White Sox play the Tampa Bay Rays starting on Friday. A series kicks off with Michael Kopech on the hill for the Sox. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with Sirius XM and the SXM app. Search White Sox. State of our White Sox, 7-12, 4.5 games back in the Central. If you're looking for some motivational quotes here heading into this huge series against baseball's best team, you can look at what Berger said just a couple days ago. Every single game, there's urgency. It doesn't matter if it's April or September to win games. And you're hoping that's what the player mentality is. And then we head to White Sox manager Pedro Grifol. I've said this before on this podcast, and I'll repeat it. He said it earlier this month. I don't like the term early. It's not early. It's a game. It's a Major League Baseball game that we've got to win, whether it's April 1st or freaking September something. Again, I will go back to that quote. I believe in it. It sure feels early after 19 games in the grand scheme of things, but if you keep going down the path that you're going as the Chicago White Sox, it will be difficult to climb out. White Sox with the day off, of course, on Thursday. A good time to catch up on some articles, take a look at some numbers, put the Sox up against other teams throughout baseball, which is scary. Hear from some players and coaches with regards to what is going on, and that's what I did. Look, everything that can go wrong, has been going wrong for our White Sox. When the off-season foundation was built on hope, luck, and the chance that lightning will not strike again, and the core players will return to accustomed levels, the results we see right now are not surprising. We kind of saw this coming back in late October, in November, with some of Rick Hahn's statements. It is really disappointing, not surprising, very disappointing, but the Sox are reaping what they sow. And this has been going on for several off seasons. These types of conversations we're having right now in April in 2023. I mean, nobody expected this several years ago, especially not after 2020. Excitement there, finally getting to the playoffs, winning the division in 2021, getting easily bounced, though. And then, coming back and trying to, not only punch the AL Central in the mouth in 2022, but make some noise in the postseason. And it's on these off days, which Thursday was, my mind wanders to what could have been for our White Sox team. And you start revisiting all these different places, where there were pitfalls and the things that the front office should have done, stuff with players and lack of performance and all the missed moves and the lack of money being spent over and over. It can be really depressing. A great article by James Fegan in The Athletic just recently, just in regards to what has been happening with this team, still trying to find their first series win, for trying to find an opportunity where they've won 2 games in a row. I mean, I cannot believe we're through 19 games and the Sox have not been able to win back-to-back games. So these are some excerpts from this article by James Fegan. Fegan wrote, White Sox have yet to define what they do well. And I had to stop and really reflect on that in the article because he's right. I don't really know what they do well consistently. We've seen spurts of it here and there, some starting pitching, a couple guys out of the pen have put together some outings. Obviously Jake Berger, and there have been moments early on where the Sox were hitting one of the best teams in baseball, but I don't think you can sit right now and say, well, this is White Sox baseball, because it has been so hot and cold. Fegan wrote, the blizzard of hits that defined the start of the season when the Sox collected 10 or more hits in 8 of their first 9 games has dissipated. They have accomplished the feat just once in their last 10 contests, and their team batting average has slid to the middle of the pack, 13th in MLB, along with their slugging 16th. With the lowest walk rate in the American League, this recent downturn in their ability to swing their way on has the White Sox reaching base at the 6th worst clip in baseball. It is early. It can be improved, but this first impression is not one a team usually makes before finishing among the league leaders. Well written by Fegan. So let's go just one player specifically here, as I'm going to bounce around in this episode. Andrew Vaughn. I talked about Andrew Vaughn way back at the beginning of January. I thought this would be the year of Andrew Vaughn. He's going to get back to first base, should be more comfortable there. If he could stay healthy, the back doesn't give him problems. I think you're going to see a nice year offensively. He's getting on base for the White Sox. I think he leads the team in walks, which isn't a monumental feat, but still, that's a big deal. He's got hits in, I think, 13 games now. The power will come around. He had his first home run just the other day, and he's looked pretty solid defensively at first base. I think just one error so far. So, I don't follow too many players after they leave the White Sox. Honestly, I think I checked in on Chris Sale, his first year with the Red Sox. I kind of kept tabs on Quintana after the trade because obviously he went to the north side. Followed Rodon a little bit, but really I couldn't tell you much what's been going on with him and all of his injury issues and when he might see the field. But I think this first year with Jose Abreu in an Astros uniform, I will just kind of check in a little bit, and I will compare Vaughn to Abreu just to see, okay, what did we say goodbye to, and what do we have in Andrew Vaughn? Obviously, there's age differences and all that stuff. Abreu, traditionally, someone that does not get off to a fast start. Well, whether it has been the Chicago cold weather, I don't know. You'll see him catch fire in summer and definitely in August. But right now, after 18, 19 games, here are your numbers. Andrew Vaughn slashing 273, 385, 424, has a home run, 14 RBIs, and an OPS of 809. Abreu lower in really every category. Abreu is slashing 266, 301, 304. Has not hit a home run yet for the Astros. Only 9 RBIs and an OPS of 605. So just something that I thought was kind of interesting, but it is really early for Abreu. But with the controlled climate in Houston, I thought maybe some of those numbers would be a little bit higher. And again, Houston shouldn't be worried at all. I don't think they're going to be relying on Jose Abreu like the way the Sox needed to rely on Jose Abreu for so many years. So something to just kind of keep tabs on. The White Sox have been road warriors to a certain extent. I mean, with a record 5 games under 500, how much of a road warrior can you be? But they've actually been playing better on the road. And that was the situation last year, too. At home, the White Sox have a minus 24 run differential, which is absolutely insane at home. And on the road, it's a minus 2 run differential. So they are going to one of the most difficult places to play in all of baseball right now. The Tampa Bay Rays are red hot. You never know. That's what we're clinging to right now as White Sox fans. You never know. Could we be catching the Rays at a time where they might just kind of fall asleep against the Sox, thinking they're not much of a challenge? We'll see. Let's take a look, though, at what has been going wrong for the Sox and a few things that have been going right, as well as how things can turn around for our White Sox. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So the White Sox kicking things off against the Tampa Bay Rays. Series starts with Michael Kopech on the hill for the White Sox. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. So why the struggles this season? If you've been watching, it is pretty obvious, but definitely there are numbers out there that will back up what you have been seeing. Sox, second most walks allowed. Pitching has been horrible. Bullpen, third worst. And that was something that I was talking about, in spring training, heading into the season. It's a big question mark. Sox bullpen, a big question mark. Where are you going to get the help that you're missing out from Crochet and from Hendricks, and most expensive bullpen? But I thought it had a lot of question marks, and they can't stay healthy. Joe Kelly, we lost, and they just have not been consistent at all. Inconsistency from starters too. I thought I'd be getting a lot more from Lance Lynn right now. He was on the cover of the Chicago Tribune a few days ago. They had his mug plastered up there on the front page. He did not look good. Not happy. And he seemed pretty confused in his post-game comments. He feels like, he's been here before. He can turn it around. But he is very surprising to me in terms of the starting rotation. Offense just can't manufacture runs. It's been coming by the home run the last 4 games, and you just can't live on that. Especially, the Sox aren't even in the top in terms of hitting home runs. So that's problematic too. The core, this core has been on the IL, and it just hasn't performed. Missing Tim Anderson, I think, matters to this team. Yoan Moncada, such a hot start, and then he fouled a pitch off his toe during that San Francisco series, the home series, the first home series, and it just hasn't been the same yet. Back issues might force him to have a minor league rehab stint. Eloy Jimenez looks absolutely lost. Unfortunately, I think you got to keep putting him out there. I think he's going to have to hit his way out of this. I don't think the Sox abandon that plan with him. Luis Robert, hot and cold offensively. He's been hitting the ball. He had the double the other day. I haven't seen the home run. I haven't seen the home runs from anybody. He has been playing some solid defense. Off season, again, you just look to what happened in the off season. It was grossly incomplete. And Hahn tried to sell us all on health, luck, and a return to accustomed levels. All three selling points have failed so far. Fundamentally poor as well. And the team just looks unprepared, especially at the plate. Lack of discipline. And then the lack of depth has really bitten the Sox so far. So how can it turn around? The simple answer is, look, stay healthy, stay on the field, and start producing. Just flat out start producing. And the Sox have to have a better game plan. And this is something that Clevenger said about the Phillies during his start on Wednesday afternoon. This was post-game. They definitely had a good game plan. Some things didn't go my way. Some things fell in the hole and extended the inning, but they were putting up a few good at-bats. That is what I wanted from the White Sox coming into this season. That is the type of mentality I wanted from our hitters. So they're not guessing so much. They know what the plan is, and having the discipline to stick with that plan against the different arms we were going to see on the mound. When asked if aggressive plate approaches are intractable, this is from a Fegan article in The Athletic, Grifol said, "Can it change? Yes, it can. Is it a quick change? No, it's not. It is a lot of work. Yes, because it's not just physical. There's a lot of mental to that, and there's a lot of belief in that. You've got to really believe that you can take borderline pitches, that you probably can put in play. But what kind of damage are you going to do if you put them in play? So it takes some time." Now, I believe in that. Yes, it takes time. But what were you working on in the off season, Castro and Tosar? I sat on this podcast and I read articles that Fegan put out talking about this is what they were doing. They were practicing taking pitches. Grifol mentioned it during spring training down in Glendale, Arizona. I was really happy with the way things were materializing. So what went wrong? Either that was a lie and that wasn't happening in the offseason, or whatever plan was put in place that was being executed was thrown out the window. And now if you're trying to build on that, okay, that is going to take some time, and that's what I wanted to get away from, is trying to recorrect stuff and learn stuff, on the fly in season. A lot of this stuff I was hoping was already going to be put in play. They would practice it in the off season, preach it, put it into work, in spring training, and then hit the ground running during the season. I've not seen that. So if that's going to take some time, I'm much more worried than I already am. Not only are the Sox not taking walks, they're swinging at pitches out of the zone, lack of discipline. It's not just Luis Robert Jr. So how about positives? Look, they're there. There are some silver lining stuff going on. Dylan Cease, he's been pretty consistent. Again, tough task to live up to what he did last season, but anytime he goes to the mound, I'm feeling confident. Like years ago, I'll bring up Chris Sale again. Man, when it was a Chris Sale day, you're like, well, Sox are pretty bad right now, but hey, this could be exciting. They might actually win this game because Chris Sale's on the hill. Kind of feeling like that from Dylan Cease. That's a lot on his shoulders. Again, like what Andrew Vaughn has been doing. Jake Berger, what he's been doing with his time has been impressive. Can he sustain that? We've seen players get hot and then completely fizzle. Berger was hot for a little bit last season, and it didn't obviously pan out. You got to have the playing time, and there's going to be roster adjustments with when folks do actually come back, if they do, from the IL. So, but again, right now, living in the moment, Berger has been a positive. Giolito, the last few starts, talked about it on the previous episode. He likes what's going on. Grifol likes what's going on. That is encouraging because it's got to be more than just Cease right now. We need a couple more, at least three, and it's to get Giolito going. I know it's his walk year. Maybe that's motivation, but that would be a huge positive is continued. A positive, negative, I mean, Sox have not played in many games with a complete lineup. So that is definitely a negative, but then you can kind of spin it and say, well, and this was talked about in previous seasons, wait till we are playing with our full lineup consistently for days and weeks. Could that actually happen? I don't know, though. Eventually we might just have to say with this team, look, you can't stay healthy. You can't keep the core together and play week in and week out for months during a season. So maybe it's too early to say that statement right now. I'd like to get Tim Anderson back soon. Hopefully Mancado, if he needs a quick rehab stint, and we'll see what can happen if they're all playing together for an extended period of time, if that's possible. A positive in terms of pitching, they are striking out their opposition. Sox pitching 190 strikeouts, the most in all of baseball. And here's Grifol trying to put a positive spin on things. Every team I've ever been on or part of, you have streaks like this, whether it's at the start, middle, end. I'm not frustrated with these guys. I trust these guys. I trust the work they are putting in, but we just have to keep going, keep battling. It will turn around, Grifol said. That's all I can say. It will turn around. So, that type of quote keeps me staying optimistic, but Grifol has also said many different things since he was hired that have just not panned out. Saying the Sox would be fundamentally solid and prepared, that was the biggest one. And how about this major positive? Just heard about this Thursday afternoon. Per his Instagram account, Liam Hendricks is in remission and cancer-free. That is absolutely awesome news. The Tampa Bay Rays are the best team in baseball and are doing everything right. The Sox have a better record on the road. Can our Southsiders surprise the Rays? More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. Hey, really excited about our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, the mobile game Ultimate Baseball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM and managing your professional baseball franchise? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. Locked On White Sox listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. Download the game. Just visit probaseballgm.com. Scan the code or look it up on the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. White Sox in Tampa for a 3-game series. Tampa, one of the few stadiums I have not been to, especially within the American League. And from everything that I've heard from people that have visited, they are telling me absolutely wait, do not rush a trip to Tampa to see that ballpark. And just from the images and the stories, I believe that. So I might wait on that Tampa trip. Recent athletic power rankings, they came out last week. Tampa Bay Rays, no surprise, they were number one. That was when their record was 14-2. Rays are now 16-3. So they are remaining up top. This was a blurb from that power rankings summary by Stephen Nesbitt. So far, the Rays are the most potent offense in the majors by a wide margin and also have the league's best pitching staff, ERA. That formula works. Their hot start is no accident. So let's take a look at some of these numbers. So Rays offense, number one in all of baseball, slashing 288, 360, 542 with a 902 OPS, 133 runs, and they've hit 42 home runs, which is first in all of baseball by a lot. Pitching, number one in baseball, team ERA of 2.57 at home. The Rays have a 2.00 ERA. Opponents batting 195. Tampa bullpen, number 5 in baseball. So there's some hope there. Sox, though, are 27th in team pitching, 19th in offense. Sox have only hit 19 home runs. White Sox are a bit better on the road offensively and much better in terms of pitching. But again, Tampa is just so good at home right now. On Friday, Michael Kopech is on the hill to kick things off. So far this year, Kopech 0-2, ERA 6.32. His last start was against Baltimore, went 5 innings, gave up 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 4 walks. That number's got to come down, and 4 strikeouts. Kopech faced the Rays last season, had some success, 5 innings, 1 hit, 0 earned runs, a couple walks, and 5 strikeouts. Tampa players have not seen, or maybe they just have not had success against Kopech in their career. So that is a good sign. Calvin Faucher is on the mound for the Tampa Bay Rays. White Sox have really not seen him before, so you know what happens when the White Sox face a pitcher they have never seen before. Sox were 4-2 against the Rays last year. Sox won 2 of 3 during a series in Tampa last June, so there's that. On Saturday, Dylan Cease will go for the Sox, and I'm assuming Lance Lynn on Sunday. So if there ever was a series to have 0 expectations as a Sox fan, I would assume this would be it. I think a split would feel absolutely amazing based on how the Sox have been playing and how the Rays have been playing. I'll be watching Kopech closely and see what adjustments, if any, the White Sox have made in their team approach. Thank you so very much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We are on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please pass that along to other White Sox fans in your life. So again, Sox take on the Rays on Friday. Kopech on the hill. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. And hey, everydayers, on the next episode, I will recap the weekend that was for our White Sox. Hopefully, by some miracle, I'll be celebrating a White Sox series win. Really appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Borowski. Until next time, go Sox.